actually happening, and with good cause, because we do have some big stories to talk about, including our headline story, which is Mary Trump continuing what looks like now a feud between her and Jon Stewart. I mean, we'll see if it continues, but she had criticized Jon Stewart after his return to The Daily Show for what he said about Joe Biden. And then when he mentioned that criticism on his show, she is now responding to it. So we'll see if it goes beyond that, but we will be playing you some of the video of what this niece of Donald Trump had to say about Jon Stewart, as well as diving into a number of other stories, including this first one that I just want to mention because it's wild. If you're here now, please hit the like button. Looks like about half of you have. So there's two types of people in the world and watching this video. The people who want to be part of the solution and the people who don't. I mean, that's just what I'm seeing based on the evidence. But anyway, jokes aside, let's jump to a very serious story. In the wake of Alexei Navalny's death in Russia, suicide crisis calls in that country have surged, and it is not a small effect. Supposedly, this one call center, I guess, or service received more than 1,000 appeals in basically what has been about a week since he died. About 35% of callers were experiencing an acute crisis with suicidal feelings. Apparently, this was more calls than had been received after the start of the invasion of Ukraine. And bear in mind, it might not be immediately clear why that would lead to a lot of people inside of Russia feeling horrible, but they're witnessing tons of their countrymen needlessly dying. You know, they've got some propaganda to try to help make that medicine go down a bit smoother, but it is indisputable that tons of Russians are dying that had no reason to die. If Putin had not decided that, oh, that country is nice, I'd like it, then they would be alive. Tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 or more Russians needlessly dead as a result of, as is so often the case, the fun little Game of Thrones that elitists and oligarchs in different countries play. Now, additionally, there were sentiments expressed by those calling to the services saying things like, they've stolen our future, and I want to go with Alexei. Apparently, there's also a Telegram bot that is devoted to helping people who are experiencing issues with their mental health. It reported a 20-fold increase in people reporting these thoughts following Navalny's death. So it isn't just, when we talk about Alexei Navalny being killed by Vladimir Putin and his dictatorial regime, the issue there is not just that this is a horrendous, murderous act against this political dissident, you know, and horrific for the family and friends and all of that. But he was also a symbol of opposition, a symbol of hope. And Russia was able to just kill him. Putin decided, no, that guy dies, and so he died. And that's got to be incredibly depressing. You know, we obviously are not in a similar circumstances in a million different ways here in the US, but very often progressives don't feel like there are a lot of aspirational figures that give us hope. The idea that one could just be blatantly killed by the leader, like if Donald Trump just decided, rather than just demonizing this member of the squad, I'm just going to kill him. I'm going to poison them, then they're going to die. We're barely going to try to pretend that that's not what it is. That would be incredibly depressing. And so I feel for people who want a change in Russia and have little hope that one will come. Okay, thank you everyone for being here. Brian, member for 35 months, has been almost 3 years. Time flies, I guess. Tell me about it, man. I am constantly reminded. Google does this thing where they'll, like, you know, send you, hey, here's a photo from a year ago. And sometimes they do, like, here's a photo from 8 years ago. And I just think, that was 8 years ago? How is it possible? Anyway, let's jump to our next story. I won't keep you hanging long for the main story. I just wanted to briefly mention this. And by the way, if you're not checking Media Matters, first of all, what are you doing with your life? Second of all, you should be going to Media Matters every day because they have a lot of great work that they do. And one is Chaya Raichik, the Libs of TikTok person, was laughing off. And I'm not going to play the video for you, but it is ridiculous how jokey and funny they thought the fact that there are people who believe that she is a stochastic terrorist. She thinks that's hilarious. You know, the idea that I say a bunch of stuff and somebody acts on it and kills someone. That's funny that people die because of what I did. And look, the thing is, you can claim that anyone is inspiring stochastic terrorism. You can do that. There are lots of intellectually dishonest people on the internet. You can just say that. It comes down to, can we use critical thought and take a look at what's being said? Whether it's based in fact or not, whether it's criticizing the powerful or just regular people, whether it has been demonstrated over the course of a couple of years to very clearly be linked to rises in threats and actual violence. Once you build out the equation using the brains that we were given, yeah, not all of these claims that someone is a stochastic terrorist are as valid as others. And in some cases, these people know what they're fucking doing, and they know the cost that will be paid for what they're gaining from this. What Chaya Raichik is gaining is literally anyone knowing who the fuck she is. She has become noteworthy because she has decided to dedicate her life to plucking people from obscurity and ruining their lives. She is an agent of chaos and misery, and sometimes, yes, death. That is what she does, and she makes money for it. I'm sure she has a nicer house now than she did at the beginning, and that's the good side. That's what she got. And other people's lives are ruined. They lose their jobs. Perhaps they're disowned by their parents. Some of them perhaps commit suicide. Others are killed by the rabid supporters of libs of TikTok and other radical people like that. And so that's the downside, you know. So some people benefit, others don't. It's kind of the fucking way that it works. Moving on to other news. One of the least surprising little stories. I wanted to do it on the show today, but unfortunately it didn't fit. Today's TDR rundown is just absolutely jam-packed with news. Sharon Reed's going to be joining me. It is a true Big News Wednesday. So much to get to. Janine Pirro referred to immigrants as insects, saying they're, quote, like ants coming down a molehill in various parts of the country. And that's just, you know, that's not bad. That's not scary. There's no historic precedent for, you know, people in right-wing political movements referring to migrants as insects or non-human creatures and that leading to bad things. There's nothing like that. So that's cool. She just chose this metaphor, I guess in this case, an analogy at random. It's not designed to dehumanize or anything like that. She just happened to say that they're like insects because you see, first of all, like ants coming down a molehill. Wouldn't they come down a fucking anthill, you moron? You know what comes down a molehill? Moles, generally. It's in the name, look it up. But anyway, whether moles or ants, they're not humans, okay? They don't come across the border like a person desperate for a better life. They come like fucking insects, like animals scurrying across. And when ants are coming into your house, what is that? That's an infestation. She's not saying infestation, but she is describing an infestation. And what do you do when insects are swarming across the border? What do you do? Fucking Janine Pirro. And she gets paid a ton of money to, again, just put out there, like Chaya Raichik, I mean, these aren't people at the end of the day, and they're making our country dirty. They're invading. What are you gonna do about it, America? Anyway, I want to turn to Mary Trump, who, by the way, outside of the Jon Stewart thing, I'm not very familiar with her advocacy. I know that she doesn't like Donald Trump, so, you know, a big fan of her position on that, I suppose. Zeets, member for 16 months, says, good morning, dragons. Good morning, Zeets. Good morning to all of you. The 1,400 are here, and in particular, the 529 who hit the like button. The rest of you are dead to me. Anyway, we're going to jump around a little bit in this video because it's 3 minutes long and ain't nobody got time for that. But I want to get to a little bit of it. And just, look, Mary Trump wants Trump to be defeated in 2024. And I could not agree with her more on that. But that doesn't mean that she is always right when discussing the things that might make that less likely to happen. So let's jump into this video. Oh, you know what? Actually, I am probably going to have to swap over the sound because I don't think on the current setting you're really going to be able to hear it, and people would be PO'd at me. So with this, it should be a little bit better.
A roundtable on the Jon Stewart imbroglio because, you know, I got a lot of pushback. I got a lot of people agreeing with me, and I think it's a really, really important topic.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there because before she gets into her direct commentary about Jon Stewart, she is saying there at the beginning of this clip that she is going to be having a round table to discuss it. And she can do that. She can totally do that. And look, have I sometimes given too much attention to things more than I should? Perhaps, if you go back through history, you can find examples of that. But Jon Stewart returned to The Daily Show, and he did a segment where he criticized Biden's age. And Mary Trump tweeted her opposition to that. That's fine. I don't agree with her, but she is free to do that. So Jon Stewart responded to the many critics of him and mentioned her, to which she is now doing this video. So she tweeted, she's doing this video, and she's going to be doing a round table. And let's assume that that ends it. There's no reason at this point to assume that that'll be at the end of it. That seems like a lot when the video was not about you. Hey, Gabby. The video from Jon Stewart was not about Mary Trump. It was about Biden. And about Trump, by the way. I will remind you, for those who didn't watch it, it was critical of Donald Trump, quite critical, actually. And if you have not watched the now 2 episodes of Jon Stewart's Return to the Daily Show, you totally should, because it's really good. I understand that it's the sort of media that is like kind of designed for guys like me, I suppose, but it's good. And he's back, and he's still got it, and he's criticizing the right, but he also, hey Wayne, how's it going? He also, of course, he also criticized Joe Biden because Joe Biden is criticizable. You know why? Because he's not infallible. Because every human has flaws and weaknesses and limitations. And because, as Mary Trump will be the first to say, this is an incredibly high stakes election. So there's a lot from Mary Trump about this, but we're going to continue. I'm going to have to jump ahead a little bit.
About
So they're doing the thing, comedy, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's...
solo guest on Emergency Hour, Judy Gold. And
Judy
she'll
Gold
also
there.
be
I
a
like
part
Judy
of
Gold.
the Jon Stewart's choice to equate Biden with Donald. Just so you guys know, I will never use the word president.
Okay, we're good with that. I don't care.
And I will never
that's
call
her
him
choice.
anything but Donald.
That's fine.
Except apparently the guy who starts with D.
And by the way, look, a lot of people don't like Donald Trump. She's a family member of his. That perhaps gives her special reason to despise him. So I'm not disregarding that, by the way.
So anyway, given Stewart's choice to equate Biden with Donald, what's the best way to convince John to focus his sarcasm and jokes only on Donald if he's truly back on the Daily Show for the purpose of protecting democracy? I don't know. I don't know what his agenda is. As I mentioned earlier,
I think I know.
Took a lot of flack for my comments because he's a comedian and he should be able to say whatever he wants. Yeah, of course he should be able. Everybody should be able to say what they want, but that doesn't mean you can't criticize them. You know, and that
goes both ways.
That's where people just completely fail to understand what the First Amendment is.
Well, look, she's 100% right. You can say whatever you want, and then another person can criticize it. So we can criticize her, presumably, right? We can do that. Bear in mind, and we'll see if we can get to more of the video. She describes Jon Stewart posting one of her tweets, amongst others that criticized him, as her living rent-free in his head. And look, I know not everybody uses terms the same way, but I'm not sure she knows exactly what that means, because it is not rent-free in his head when he is invoking you because you attacked him. It's not like he was like, oh, by the way, I saw that Mary Trump was tweeting about that new Emma Stone movie, and fuck her. No, that would be rent-free, because you didn't talk about him. What the hell does he care? No, you attacked him. So presumably, if under your new definition of living rent-free under someone's head, when someone attacks you, that means that you're living rent-free in their head. Well, you're talking about Jon Stewart again, and you're going to have a round table about Jon Stewart's comments, so he is definitely shocked up in your head rent-free right now. And look, he was responding to a tweet of yours that was entirely attacking him. He only included you as one of several. So I think he's more justified in his criticism, particularly when you're saying that him pointing out that people do have an issue with Joe Biden's age, whether you think they should or not, they do, is a threat to democracy. And you now debating, how do we get him to save his sarcasm only for criticizing Trump? Look, I have no doubt that Jon Stewart is going to criticize Trump a whole hell of a lot between now and Election Day. He's going to do that because he's Jon Stewart. We know he doesn't like Donald Trump. He disagrees with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is awful. So he's going to do that. But no one is under any obligation to just ignore other criticisms. We're only going to do that. We're going to pretend that because this guy's bad and is a threat to democracy, everyone else is just the best. They're great, and we should have no concerns about them. But the issue is, Mary Trump, that you getting Jon Stewart to pretend that no one has any issues with Biden's age or whatever, insert an issue, that doesn't make it so, okay? Jon Stewart didn't do this segment because no one's talking about Biden's age or competence or the flubs or whatever. Nobody is. Nobody's concerned about it. But I, Jon Stewart, think that they should be, so let me just insert myself into this election. That's not actually how it went, okay? And it's not even an accurate depiction of what this segment was. He was incredibly critical of Donald Trump. Just ignoring Biden's issues has been proven to not solve those issues because they remain issues prior to Jon Stewart's return to The Daily Show. So again, look, I understand if somebody mentions you, particularly on TV, you're going to respond. I do agree that she has a First Amendment right to talk about whatever she wants. She can talk about Jon Stewart every day for the rest of her life if she wants to, and thus far it appears that might be what she does. But I know it's not the amazing political strategy that you think it is. And it's not even an honest political strategy because as I laid out in the damage report yesterday, this idea that we never say anything about our candidate that might someday be used against them and hurt them in a general election is not actually the strategy that centrist Democrats pursue. They want it to be applied to centrist Democrats if it's a primary of Hillary Clinton, if it's a primary with Joe Biden. Don't criticize them, because that could end up hurting them. But have they ever held their punches against a progressive in those very primaries? Did they feel like, I don't agree with Bernie Sanders, but I don't think that we should say anything mean about him because that could hurt him if he becomes the candidate. Who the hell, what centrist Democrat actually acts that way? Actually acts as if that's their political strategy? None of them. And obviously I could go on longer, but I just realized it's 9:51 and I have no time, so I have to go. But anyway, really fast, Stefan says, did you hear about the non-binary Oklahoma team Next? They were beaten up by 3 girls and died 2 days later from their injuries. Yes, so that was going to be one of the stories that I covered on the pre-port yesterday, possibly the headline story in the pre-port yesterday, and then I unfortunately had to take a call and I wasn't able to do it. But thank you for bringing it up once again. An absolutely devastating story. And by the way, goes to what we were talking about the demonization of people who don't conform to what the right wants and how that, like, inevitably, not in a surprising way, leads to violence. So you're 100% right to point it out. Devastating that something like that would happen in this country. And none of the right wingers are backing off, by the way. None of them are saying that this is unacceptable. None of them are doing, lead stories on how, dear God, we've crossed some sort of line as a country when they 100% should be. Anyway, unfortunately, I do have to go. Thank you, everyone, for watching, particularly those of you who hit the like button. And I will see you on the full show, which, as I said, is packed with news.